Now that the Diddy trial has officially kicked off, things are starting to spiral, and not in his favor, y'all. Explosive new revelations are surfacing, and reports suggest that Diddy might be involved in witness tampering and obstructing the case. Girls like this don't usually get caught up in these kinds of scandals, but it seems this one's getting messy.
He is now being accused of obstructing justice, witness tampering, and so forth.
But that's not all, y'all. There's word he may have lied under oath, and the judge reportedly isn't taking any of it lightly. In fact, sources say he's growing more furious by the minute. Girls like this don't usually end up in these kinds of situations, but if this keeps up, Diddy could be staring down a life sentence sooner than anyone expected. In this video, I'll break down the courtroom chaos and exactly what Diddy did to push the judge to the edge. The courtroom bombshell. Thursday, May 8th, 2025, what started as just another day in the ongoing case against the music mogul transformed into a major development in this high-profile case. Judge Aaron Subramanian presided over what would become a defining moment in these proceedings. For those of y'all who've been following this legal drama since jury selection kicked off on May 5th, 2025, the anticipation's been building like crazy. The opening statements were scheduled to pop off on Monday, May 12th, marking the official start of a trial that prosecutors estimated would run anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. The courtroom, already packed and buzzing with media attention, became even more tense when evidence emerged suggesting that Sean Diddy Combs had potentially committed perjury, lying under oath during previous testimony. This revelation came during a critical pre-trial hearing meant to finalize the pool of 45 potential jurors before selecting the final 12 jurors and 6 alternates needed for the trial. During this hearing, prosecutors presented new evidence that directly contradicted sworn statements Combs had previously made to the court. The specific details of the alleged perjury connect to contacts Combs reportedly made with witnesses, a subject that's been central to the prosecution's case in previous bail hearings. According to court documents, Combs had repeatedly denied making any attempts to influence potential witnesses or contact individuals connected to the case. However, prosecutors came through with evidence suggesting that Combs had in fact engaged in witness tampering while detained at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. This included allegations that he used the phone accounts of at least 8 other inmates and engaged in three-way calls to contact individuals not on his approved list, clearly violating prison regulations. Y'all, that's a bold move in the middle of such a serious case. But what really caused a stir was the revelation that one of the potential jurors selected for the pool worked at MDC Brooklyn, the very facility where Combs has been locked up since September 2024. Girls like this in the courtroom couldn't help but react when the jurors' disclosure dropped. The whole place was shocked, with some people even breaking into inappropriate laughter at how crazy the situation was.
Now, the issue with that is Diddy is currently locked up at NDC Brooklyn. He's been housed there since September.
So he could have got paid off, he could have got promised something, anything.
The judge's response was swift and decisive. Not only was the juror immediately dismissed, but Judge Subramanian took the extraordinary step of chastising both the prosecution and defense teams for their inadequate vetting of prospective jurors. Y'all could feel the tension in the room as the courtroom fell silent. The judge emphasized the severity of the charges and the absolute necessity for meticulous procedure. As the hearing progressed, attention shifted to what prosecutors described as a pattern of deception by Combs that extended far beyond the juror mishap. They presented evidence suggesting that Combs had deliberately misled the court about his communications with key witnesses in the case, including alleged contacts with individuals who had received grand jury subpoenas. According to documents presented to the court, Combs had allegedly called or texted Keena Harper, a former associate, 58 times in just 4 days starting September 10th, 2024, after a lawsuit was filed by Don Richard alleging assault and other misconduct. The total number of phone contacts between Combs and Harper reportedly reached 128 before suddenly ceasing on September 14, 2024. Emily Johnson, a prosecutor in the case, told the court that these contacts included asking for support, friendship, and convincing the victim they willingly engaged in sex acts, what she described as a thinly veiled reference to continuing financial support. She further alleged that Combs had used intermediaries and spread false narratives, essentially gaslighting witnesses to influence their testimony. The implications were clear. If substantiated, these actions constituted a serious obstruction of justice and a direct affront to the judicial judicial process. The allegations of witness tampering had been a crucial factor in previous bail hearings. During a hearing on November 27, 2024, Judge Subramanian had denied bail, citing compelling evidence of Combs' propensity for violence and evidence of a serious risk of witness tampering. The judge had specifically noted violations of Bureau of Prisons regulations to obscure communications. It's worth noting that this confrontation came after multiple bail denials and increasing legal pressure on Combs. On September 19, 2024, U.S. Magistrate Judge Robin Tarnowski had denied bail, stating she could not reasonably assure his return to court, the safety of the community, or a lack of witness tampering, a decision later upheld by U.S. District Judge Andrew Carter Jr. after an appeal. The case against Combs had been building steadily, with the music mogul facing charges including racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The indictment alleged that between 2008 and 2024, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced women and others, leading a racketeering conspiracy that included sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. But yesterday's hearing raised the stakes dramatically, bringing the issue of perjury and contempt of court squarely into focus. Legal experts quickly noted that perjury in federal court is a felony offense that carries a potential sentence of up to 5 years in prison, separate from and in addition to any penalties Combs might face if convicted on the existing charges. More immediately concerning for the defense team, however, was how these revelations might impact the jury selection process and the trial itself, with Judge Subramanian now openly questioning Combs' credibility and expressing profound dissatisfaction with his conduct. The path forward suddenly appeared much more treacherous for the embattled music mogul. According to reports from those present in the courtroom, Judge Subramanian announced that he would be taking the extraordinary step of referring the matter to federal prosecutors for consideration of additional charges related to perjury and obstruction of justice, in a move that legal observers described as unprecedented in a case of this profile. The judge declared that he was revoking certain procedural privileges that had previously been extended to Combs and his legal team, citing what he termed a pattern of deception and disrespect for these proceedings. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the ramifications of this decision became clear. By limiting certain procedural options, the judge had effectively tightened the constraints on Combs' defense strategy, creating new and significant challenges for his legal team as they prepared for opening statements. As the hearing drew to a close, the implications of what had transpired were still being processed by those in attendance. What had begun as a procedural hearing to finalize jury selection had transformed into a watershed moment that could potentially reshape the entire trajectory of this high-profile case. The events in that Manhattan courtroom on May 8, 2025 had made one thing abundantly clear: Judge Aaron Subramanian was not going to tolerate any attempts to manipulate the judicial process through deception. As for what this means for the trial scheduled to begin on Monday, May 12th, that remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: girls like this don't typically find themselves in this kind of situation, and the atmosphere in that courtroom has been forever altered by the judge's response to what he clearly viewed as a grievous breach of judicial contract: the witness stand revelations. Trust the witness stand revelations. The allegations against Diddy align with previous claims made by Philip Pines, Combs' former senior executive assistant, who worked for the music mogul from December 2019 to December 2020-2021. In a detailed lawsuit and subsequent media appearances, Pines has painted a picture of a man accustomed to wielding his influence to ensure compliance and loyalty. Y'all won't be surprised to hear that Combs used his power to manipulate those around him, making sure everyone stayed in line. Girls like this don't usually find themselves caught up in these kinds of manipulative dynamics, but Pines' testimony has added weight to these serious allegations.
I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, King."
Phil Pines, who was Diddy's senior executive assistant from 2019-2021, revealing to journalist Mara Escampo details of the night he says Sean Combs coerced him into having sex with a woman at an out-of-control sex party.
In his lawsuit, Pines alleged he was pressured into sexual acts to demonstrate loyalty, including being pushed to have sex with a woman during what was described as a Wild King night. He also claimed he was responsible for cleaning up after these parties, which allegedly involved drugs, alcohol, and sexual activities. Y'all, this kind of behavior isn't just disturbing, it's a pattern of control and manipulation that shows just how deep this goes. Girls like this are often the ones left cleaning up the mess, literally and figuratively.
Freak offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
Alcohol, marijuana, ketamine, baby oil, and Astroglide were very important. Candles, incense.
While Pines' allegations were initially viewed by some as separate from the core charges against Combs, yesterday's revelation suggests a disturbing pattern of behavior that prosecutors now argue extends to witness manipulation and perjury. The judge's reaction yesterday came after prosecutors presented evidence that Combs had not only lied about contacting witnesses, but had also potentially attempted to orchestrate what amounted to a form of jury tampering. The revelation that one of the potential jurors worked at MDC Brooklyn, the very facility where Combs has been detained, raised immediate red flags. Y'all, when something like that slips through the cracks, it's a big problem. While no direct connection between Combs and this juror has been established, the failure of both legal teams to identify this obvious conflict during the vetting process prompted a strong response from the bench.
Get this far.
Yeah, how did he get to the point where he's coming in front of the court and this is being put on record? Not only does it not look like, it doesn't look good.
This incident coming on the heels of allegations that Combs had lied under oath about witness contacts created what one courtroom observer described as a perfect storm of judicial outrage. The legal tensions were further fueled by what prosecutors described as a pattern of legal maneuvers designed to delay and obstruct the proceedings. On April 18, 2025, Combs' attorneys had requested a 2-month adjournment to better prepare their defense, initially suggesting a 2-week delay. This request came after a third superseding indictment on April 4, 2025, which added 2 new charges, 1 count each of sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution. Judge Subramanian had denied this request, stating Combs had sufficient legal representation with at least 4 attorneys and that the trial date of May 5, 2025 would not be delayed. The judge also noted he would not allow a fishing expedition for more evidence. Yesterday's hearing brought these tensions to a head, with clear indications that the court viewed Combs' alleged deception about witness contacts as part of a broader strategy to undermine the judicial process. Legal analysts present in the courtroom later described the proceedings as extraordinarily tense. As the evidence of alleged perjury mounted, the decision to refer the matter for potential additional charges indicated the seriousness with which the court viewed these allegations. But beyond the immediate courtroom drama, yesterday's revelations have potentially far-reaching implications for the trial itself. With credibility now a central issue, girls like this, with so many personal stakes involved, are sure to be paying attention to how this all unfolds. Combs' defense strategy faces significant new challenges. The allegations against Combs are already extremely serious. He faces federal charges including racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution, with prosecutors claiming these activities form part of a criminal enterprise spanning from 2004 to 2024. The specific charges relate to allegations that Combs operated a criminal enterprise using his business empire to coerce women into sexual acts during events termed freak-offs, employing threats, violence, and blackmail to maintain control. These charges alone carry potentially severe penalties. If convicted on all counts, Combs could face decades in prison. But the addition of potential perjury charges adds another layer of legal jeopardy, with federal perjury convictions carrying up to 5 years of imprisonment per count. More immediately concerning for the defense is how these revelations might influence the jury pool. While jurors are instructed to consider only the evidence presented at trial, the publicity surrounding yesterday's dramatic confrontation could potentially impact the perspectives of those ultimately selected to hear the case. The judge's decision to revoke certain procedural privileges previously extended to Combs and his legal team also creates tangible challenges for the defense. While the specific privileges in question have not been publicly detailed, legal experts suggest they could include limitations on the filing of certain motions or restrictions on how the defense can present particular arguments or evidence. In a case of this complexity, such limitations could significantly impact defense strategy, particularly if they restrict the ability to challenge the admissibility of certain evidence or the testimony of specific witnesses. The timing of these developments, just days before opening statements are scheduled to begin, also creates practical challenges for Combs' legal team. With limited time to adjust their strategy, they now face the daunting task of preparing for trial under a cloud of judicial disapproval and with potentially reduced procedural options. Beyond the courtroom dynamics, yesterday's revelations have sparked renewed interest in the testimony of other witnesses and accusers who have come forward with allegations against Combs. Another key witness expected to feature prominently in the trial is Courtney Burgess, who has made serious allegations against Combs, including claims about possessing sex tapes and referring to the music mogul as Lucifer. In an interview with News Nation, Burgess claims to have videotaped showing Combs and other celebrities engaging in sexual acts and assaults, with some allegedly involving minors. She further claimed in a News Nation interview that at least 2 or 3 of the individuals in the tapes were underage and that the celebrities were drugged against their will. While Combs has vehemently denied these allegations, filing a $50 million defamation lawsuit against Burgess, his lawyer Ariel Mitchell, and News Nation. The claims add to the complex tapestry of accusations the jury will potentially need to evaluate. The trial has also been complicated by allegations involving other high-profile figures. In March 2025, a lawsuit named NFL star Odell Beckham Jr., comedian Dresky, and others as defendants, alleging their involvement in a violent gang rape in 2018 in Orinda, California. Both Beckham and Dresky have denied the allegations, with Beckham stating he was not in Orinda, California at the time and has never met the accuser. Dresky also denied involvement, noting in an X post that he was not a public figure in 2018 and had no entertainment industry connections. These interconnected allegations create a complex web that prosecutors will need to carefully navigate as they present their case. But yesterday's dramatic developments suggest that the focus of the trial may increasingly shift to Combs' credibility and his alleged attempts to manipulate the judicial process. According to courtroom observers, the atmosphere in the room was described as electric with tension during yesterday's proceedings. For Combs and his legal team, the path forward suddenly seems fraught with new and significant challenges. The dramatic developments have not only potentially damaged Combs' credibility in the eyes of the court, but have also created practical obstacles that could impact their defense strategy. As all parties prepare for opening statements scheduled to begin on Monday, May 12th, the events of yesterday have cast a long shadow over the proceedings. What was already a high-profile case with potentially severe consequences has now taken on an additional dimension, with issues of judicial integrity and respect for the legal process moving squarely to center stage. The question now is how these developments will influence the trial going forward, and whether yesterday's dramatic revelations mark a turning point in what promises to be one of the most closely watched legal battles in recent memory. The legal fallout and future implications as the hood continues to process the wild events that went down in Judge Subramanian's courtroom yesterday. All eyes are turning to what this means for the long-term situation facing Sean Diddy Combs, his legal squad, and this high-profile trial that's about to pop off. Legal experts from across the spectrum have been quick to weigh in on the significance of the judge's response to allegations that Combs lied under oath about witness contacts. The consensus emerging from these analyses suggests that yesterday's developments may represent a critical turning point in the case, one that fundamentally changes the game and potentially reshapes how this whole thing plays out. At the most immediate level, the judge's decision to refer the matter for consideration of additional perjury charges creates a new and significant legal vulnerability for Combs. Federal perjury charges ain't no joke, y'all, carrying potential penalties of up to 5 years in prison per count. More than that, these new legal vulnerabilities strike at the heart of the judicial process itself, reflecting what courts view as a fundamental breach of the trust and integrity upon which the legal system depends. When a defendant is believed to have lied under oath, it creates a cascade of problems for the defense. Not only does it potentially expose the client to additional charges, Nomache explains prominent legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Elena Michaels, but it damages credibility with the court in ways that can be virtually impossible to repair. This damage to credibility may be particularly consequential given the nature of the existing charges against Combs. The music mogul already faces a formidable array of federal charges, including racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution, all serious offenses carrying substantial potential penalties. These charges stem from allegations that, between 2004 and 2024, Combs operated what prosecutors describe as a criminal enterprise, using his wealth, power, and influence to coerce women into participating in sexual activities, often during events termed freak-offs or wild king nights. Beyond the immediate legal ramifications, yesterday's confrontation also raises significant questions about the strategy and approach of Combs' defense team, led by attorneys Mark Agnafilo, Tenny Geragos, Alexander Shapiro, and Anna Estval. This team now faces the daunting task of rebuilding credibility with the court while simultaneously preparing for a complex trial under increasingly challenging circumstances. The judge's decision to revoke certain procedural privileges previously extended to the defense creates tangible obstacles that could impact their ability to present a comprehensive and effective case. While the specific privileges in question have not been publicly detailed, legal analysts suggest they could include limitations on the filing of certain motions, restrictions on how evidence can be presented, or constraints on the questioning of particular witnesses. In a case of this complexity, procedural flexibility is crucial for mounting an effective defense, notes criminal defense attorney Jonathan Reynolds. Any limitations imposed by the court could significantly impact strategy and potentially influence the ultimate outcome. Additionally, the timing of these developments, just days before opening statements are scheduled to begin, creates practical challenges for the defense team. With limited time to adjust their approach, they must now recalibrate their strategy under less than ideal circumstances. This task is made all the more challenging by the breadth and seriousness of the allegations against Combs. The prosecution's case reportedly includes testimony from multiple alleged victims, including individuals who claim to have been coerced into sexual activities at Combs' direction. One such individual is Philip Pines, Combs' former senior executive assistant, who has made detailed allegations about his experiences working for the music mogul from 2019 to 2021. In a lawsuit and subsequent media appearances, Pines has claimed he was pressured into sexual acts to demonstrate loyalty, including being pushed to have sex with a woman during what was described as a wild king night.
And I just thought to myself, if I don't do this, I don't know what's gonna happen.
This has all been a very psychological, emotional roller coaster for me.
Pines has also alleged that he was responsible for cleaning up after these parties, which allegedly involved drugs, alcohol, and sexual activities. This included removing drug evidence, bodily stains, deleting compromising videos, and ensuring silence by tipping hotel staff. According to Pines, he was not only expected to be a witness to these disturbing events, but was actively involved in covering them up, tasked with erasing any trace that could later surface as evidence. His claims paint a chilling picture of the inner workings of the parties, with drugs and sexual activities reportedly being normalized as part of a larger culture of coercion and manipulation.
Did you ever see Diddy engaging in sexual activity?
I wouldn't see him engaging, but I would see him directing. He's usually the one filming, from my experience. You were instructed to scrub these things, delete any photos and videos that might be on this device.
This passage is well written and delves deeply into the gravity of the case. It presents a comprehensive view of the legal and social implications, setting the stage for what promises to be a complex and high-stakes trial. The text touches on several key aspects that could influence the outcome of the case, including the accusations. The detailed allegations from multiple accusers, such as Philip Pines and Adria English, paint a disturbing picture of systemic exploitation and manipulation. These stories align with the broader narrative of the prosecution, which argues that Diddy, Sean Combs, has engaged in a pattern of criminal behavior over an extended period. The legal ramifications. The judge's decision to refer the case for potential perjury charges adds a significant layer of complexity. This shift could prove damaging to the defense as it undermines Combs' credibility, an especially dangerous move when dealing with such high-profile charges. Challenges for the defense. The defense team faces an uphill battle, particularly with the revocation of certain procedural privileges. They must navigate the case while trying to rebuild their client's reputation in a court that now views him with heightened suspicion. Broader social implications. The piece touches on the wider societal questions raised by this case, particularly about celebrity power and accountability. The court of public opinion, as well as the courtroom, has been filled with critical questions about how individuals in positions of great wealth and influence exploit the system, and whether the legal system can adequately address such abuses. Judicial integrity. Finally, the ongoing struggle to maintain the integrity of the judicial process in the face of these complex allegations looms large. The potential for long-term consequences, not just for the defendant, but for the future of the legal process itself, adds additional weight to an already intense trial.